Welcome back to SportsbookReview.com. Matt DeSaro here, and we're talking NHL playoff quarterfinal action with our NHL expert, Dave Goloklov. What's up, Dave? We feeling lucky today?
I'm feeling very lucky. I've got my lucky rabbit's foot here.
All right, that's good, man. Now, we can't talk about Game 6 before we talk about Game 5 last night. Chicago was looking to clinch. They had a tie game going into the third, and they give up an early goal, and everything falls apart in epic dumpster fire fashion. What the heck happened? And have the Predators gained the momentum enough to really make this a series?
I think it was just a bad game for Chicago. You take a look at how this game went down. Really, for the most part, it was an even game until the third period. Chicago was playing well. Nashville was playing a little bit tight. It was 1-1 heading into the third period, and then all of a sudden, the train came off the tracks for Chicago. James Neal gets an early goal 47 seconds into the period. Chicago gets a little rattled, takes a stupid penalty. Preds score on the on the power play, and then they end up scoring like 12 seconds after that goal, after the power play. So essentially, Chicago came unglued for a span of like 4 minutes, and it cost them. It was basically, if you got off your couch to go to the fridge and get a beer and you came back, you basically missed the entire game. So I think when you look back at it, just Chicago got outworked in certain areas. They started taking dumb penalties in the third period. In the first two periods, they had 2 penalty minutes. In the third period, they had 20. Out hit by the Predators, 36-16. They lost in the face-off circle. Those are just some factors that show some stats that show energy and effort was more on Nashville's side than it was on Chicago's, and that's what cost them.
Yeah, it was really a very costly 4 minutes, like you pointed out. Now, looking forward to Game 6, we're going back to Chicago. They really need to step it up if needing. And if they go down again, I can really see them losing a Game 7 in Nashville. What do the Hawks need to do tomorrow to stifle this late series run by Nashville?
I think they just need to get back to playing a little bit smarter. That's all it is. It looked to me like they were sort of coasting along in the first couple periods, and that worked. And then it didn't work in the third period, and that was it. They need to get back to pushing the pedal to the metal. They first off need to cut off these stupid penalties. In game, for example, Nashville had more penalty minutes than Chicago. I'm not expecting the hits. Hits is not a big deal for me. Nashville probably is going to win that, but Chicago needs to get more shots on Pecorine. They need to press the action a little bit more. They need to be smarter in terms of penalties, and they need to do more with their power play. So I think it's in them. I think it was really game 5 was more of a example of them falling asleep more than anything else. This is an experienced team. They know how to seal the deal in these types of situations. It's a series clinching game. They're at home. I think those factors definitely point the arrow into their favor here.
Yeah, so they just have to get back to playing their game, it seems like. Now, the Predators must be riding pretty high right now, and for good reason. They really put Chicago on their backs last night. And I know momentum is a hard sell sometimes. Us sports guys really like quantitative statistics, but coming off such an emotional outing, do you think that alone affects this series enough moving forward to make any sort of difference?
It's a tough call. I mean, what's interesting here is if you look at this series from a bigger scale now that we've played 5 games, Nashville has, in their 2 wins, they've won by a combined, 7 goals? They've rolled in their 2 wins. Now, their 3 losses, they were all close. And 2 of the losses, they were up late in the third period, blew the lead, and ended up losing in double or triple overtime. So if you're looking at this from Nashville's perspective, you're saying, hey, we probably should have won this series by now, have not blown leads, let alone be trailing. So I don't know that momentum or confidence is as big of a factor as anything here. I just think that Nashville has to find a way to overcome Chicago at home. Chicago's experience, all those things that we talked about with Chicago, They're at home. They're in Game 6. Series clincher. They've won Stanley Cups with this team. They know what it takes. Nashville is the team that has to go above and beyond the call of duty here. Can they do it? Yeah, I think so. It's possible. They're going to need Pekka Rinne to be fantastic and maybe steal them a game in this series. But it's definitely doable. It looks like Chicago's had the upper hand in this series when you look at the series score. But as mentioned, when you break it down game by game, it's very conceivable to say that Nashville should have already sealed this thing by now. So kind of an interesting way to look at it. But Nashville needs a really good game in Game 6 to force Game 7.
All right, so let's get down to this pick. What are we looking at tonight? We got some steep lines on both sides of this money. Are you taking a chance on one of these, or are we just going to play it safe with a total bet maybe?
Well, I normally don't like to lay more than minus 140 with NHL games. I've pushed it at times to minus 150 in the playoffs, and I'm okay with the Blackhawks at minus 150, which is what they opened at yesterday at sports betting or bet online, same thing. But the reality is that line has opened at a different number in most sports books. I think I mentioned before, bet online, sports betting, they always hang like these way off openers. Still, I like it at minus 150. Minus 170 is too rich for my blood. I would probably go with the over if that's the case. So if before Saturday's game the line drops back to the minus 150 neighborhood, I would recommend Chicago. Otherwise, I'm just recommending Chicago, I guess, for shits and giggles. And my pick then officially will be an over. Reason I like the over, I just think Nashville has at least seemed to have found their way through Scott Darling. He slammed the door shut in the first couple games he came in, gave up 4 in the last one. They scored 5 in total. And Pekka Rinne tends to give up at least 2, sometimes 3, or usually 3 against Chicago. So, 2-2 at least. That gives us a push. I think over is a pretty solid play in Game 5 as well.
All right, there you have it. The over looking pretty good, and maybe we take Chicago if that line comes down a little bit. I want to thank you for coming in, Dave, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow, all right?
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, and for Sportsbook Review, I'm Matt DeSaro. Remember, keep it locked right here for all playoff NHL picks and analysis.